guys, good morning. I'm super excited because this week I'm going to share with you guys a chapter book. We're going to read it. It's going to take us all week long to read it. And it's one of the books that I really loved when I was in school. And it is called Freckle Juice. And it's by an author named Judy Blume. And it's super funny. And before we get started, I want to read to you the blurb that can give us kind of that sneak peek. So here's what it says. More than anything in the world, Andrew wants freckles. I forgot to tell you the character's name is Andrew in our story. His classmate Nikki has freckles. They cover his face, his ears, and the whole back of his neck. Once, sitting behind him in class, Andrew counted 86 of them, and that was just a start. One day after school, Andrew screws up enough courage to ask Nikki where he got his freckles. And as luck would have it, who should overhear him but giggling, teasing Sharon. Sharon offers Andrew her secret freckle juice recipe for 50 cents. That's a lot of money to Andrew. 5 whole weeks allowance. He spends a sleepless night torn between his desire for freckles and his reluctance to part with such a substantial sum of money. Finally, the freckles win, and Andrew decides to accept Sharon's offer. After school, Andrew rushes home with the recipe tucked into his shoe. He carefully begins to mix the strange combination of ingredients and immediately runs into some problems. So I want you to stop and make a little prediction about, do you think there really could be a magic way to make freckles appear? And what do you think this girl who likes to tease everybody is going to put in the recipe? So I'm going to read to you chapter 1. There aren't a lot of pictures, but I will show you a couple pictures. Chapter 1. Andrew Marcus wanted freckles. Nikki Lane had freckles. He had about 1 million of them. They covered his face, his ears, and the back of his neck. Andrew didn't have any freckles. He had 2 warts on his finger. But they didn't do him any good at all. If he had freckles like Nikki, his mother would never know if his neck was dirty. So he wouldn't have to wash, and then he'd never be late for school. Andrew had plenty of time to look at Nikki's freckles. He sat right behind him in class. Once, he even tried to count them. But when he got to 86, Miss Kelly called, "Andrew, are you paying attention?" "Yes, Miss Kelly," Andrew said. "Good, Andrew. I'm glad to hear that. Now, will you please pick up your chair and join your reading group? We are all waiting for you." Andrew stood up in a hurry. His reading group giggled, especially Sharon. He couldn't stand that Sharon. She thought she knew everything. He picked up his chair and carried it to the corner where his reading group sat. "You may begin, Andrew," Miss Kelly said. "Page 64. Andrew turned the pages in his book. 64, 64. He couldn't find it. The pages stuck together. Why did Miss Kelly have to pick him? Everybody else already had their books open to the right page. Sharon kept giggling. She covered her mouth to keep in the noise, but Andrew knew what was going on. He finally found page 64, right where it was supposed to be, between pages 63 and 65. If he had his own freckles, he wouldn't have to count Nikki Lane's. Then he'd hear Miss Kelly when she called the reading groups, and nobody would laugh at him. Later, when the bell rang, Andrew poked Nikki Lane. "What do you want?" Nikki asked, turning around. "I was wondering about your freckles," Andrew said. "Oh, yeah? What about them?" Andrew felt pretty silly. "Well, how did you get them?" "What do you mean, how? You get born with them. That's how." Andrew thought that's what Nikki would say. Some help he was. "Line up, boys and girls," Miss Kelly said. "Time to go home now. Sharon, you may lead the girls. Andrew, you may lead the boys." Some luck. Just when he got to be leader, he had to stand next to Sharon. When they were in line, Sharon whispered to Andrew, "Psst, I know how to get them." "How to get what?" Andrew asked. "Freckles," Sharon said. "Who asked you?" "I heard you ask Nikki about his." Sharon ran her tongue along her teeth. She was always doing that. "Do you want to know how to get them?" Sharon asked. "Maybe," Andrew told her. It'll cost you 50 cents. I have a secret recipe for Freckle juice, Sharon whispered. A secret recipe? Uh-huh. Sharon's tongue reminded Andrew of a frog catching flies. He wondered if Sharon ever got a mouthful of bugs, the way she opened her mouth and wiggled her tongue around. Andrew inspected Sharon's face. You don't even have freckles, he said. Look close, Sharon said. I've got 6 on my nose. Big deal. A lot of good 6'll do. You can get as many as you want. 6 was enough for me. It all depends on how much freckle juice you drink. Andrew didn't believe Sharon for a minute. Not 1 minute. There was no such thing as freckle juice. Andrew had never heard of it before. Okay, that's the end of the chapter. We're going to stop there and we'll continue tomorrow. So think about what you might think is in freckle juice and if it's really going to work. And I'll see you tomorrow.